Okay, so somewhat recently I've decided that I want to start learning Latin. And there's multiple reasons why I want to learn Latin as a language. The first reason is it's just cool. Like if you've ever heard anyone speak Latin, it just sounds really cool. But that's not the main reason. The second reason is there's a lot of stuff I want to read that is either originally written in Latin and translated, or never translated to English but written in Latin. For example, I have a book right here that I got somewhat recently. It's Augustine's Soliloquies, I think it's how you pronounce it. And this book is unique in that it's written in 3 different languages: Modern English, Old English, and Latin. Now, this book was originally written in Latin, so I want to read it in its original language. This is a really cool book, though. If I open it up, you'll see that half the book is written in Modern English, and the other half is written in Latin. And that's just the first half of the book. The second half of the book, half of it is written in Modern English, and half of it is written in Old English. And it's actually funny. Old English is closer to Latin than it is Modern English, which I find pretty funny. But that brings me to my third point. And my third point is that when you learn Latin, a lot of other languages descend from Latin. For example, Italian, Spanish, and French, just to name a few, are descendants of Latin. And by learning Latin, it usually makes it easier to learn those languages. So recently, I bought a book called Collar and Daniell's First Year Latin. And I'm going to be using this to learn Latin for the next around 80 days. And this is a very old book. I got it off of eBay. It's obviously older than me, and it's older than all my parents too. If I flip to the very front, you can see that it was originally written in 1901, and this version was published, which is the revised version, was published in 1918. So that goes to show how old this book is. In fact, it's in the public domain. And what makes this book so great for learning Latin is it's really stood the test of time. A lot of modern Latin books really haven't stood the test of time that this book has. And in fact, even just the first part right here, the essentials of grammar, really stands out on its own too. This is probably one of the best, even though this section is only around 14 pages. It's probably one of the best and most concise summaries of grammar. I won't say summary of grammar, but essential grammar lessons that I've ever read. In fact, if you handed this to me while I was in high school, I probably wouldn't have to take an English class ever again. That's how good this is. And so this book is comprised of multiple lessons, and each lesson is usually no more than 2 pages. So it's very, very short. And short enough where you can probably do 1 lesson per day, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And if I go to the table of contents, here we go. Yeah, if I go to the table of contents, there's a list of lessons, and once you know it, there's exactly 80 lessons. And for those of you who don't know Roman numerals, LXXX is 80. So if you're going to read this book, you definitely want to know your Roman numerals. So that means I'm going to give myself 80 days to read through 1 lesson a day, and hopefully have a somewhat decent understanding of Latin, or at least a reading comprehension of Latin by the time this is over, or by the time I'm done reading this. I will say that this is a great book. It has so many resources, not just the lessons, but there's also review questions that you can go through, appendices. I think there's also different stories in Latin that you can read, which is pretty nice. And also there's really nice illustrations, but that's specific to this edition. So yeah, I'm going to be spending the next 80 days going through this. And if you want to follow along, I'll actually go ahead and link a PDF in the description. If you want to buy a copy of this, you can. Sometimes it depends how the availability, because this book isn't published anymore, so it'll depend on whether there's copies available or not. I was lucky and got this for like $15, in pretty good condition too. But I'll put a PDF in the description because this book is technically in the public domain, so anyone can read through it. And if you want to follow along through the next 80 so days or so, today is April 28th, so I'll probably finish this around the beginning of July. So if you want to follow along, go ahead, and I guess I'll see what happens in the next 80 days. Peace.